A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
My Weird Prompts is a community-driven initiative exploring how AI can fuel curiosity and uncover the fascinating ways our world works. GPU compute for this podcast is generously provided by Modal. Learn more at modal.com.
So, I was scrolling through my feed this morning, looking at these high-resolution satellite images being shared by open-source intelligence analysts, and it struck me as almost absurd. We are looking at what is supposed to be Iran's most secretive strategic assets, these massive underground missile cities, and yet I can literally find the entrance portals on Google Maps while sitting in my pajamas. It feels like a massive contradiction, right? If these facilities are meant to be the crown jewels of a covert defense strategy, why are they so incredibly conspicuous? Today's prompt from Daniel is about exactly this paradox. He is asking why these facilities are so visible if they are meant to be covert, whether they might just be elaborate decoys, and what the actual strategic logic is behind leaving these sites exposed to anyone with an internet connection.
It is a fascinating tension, Korn, and one that has moved from the realm of academic debate into a very grim reality over the last week. I am Herman Poppleberry, and I have been closely tracking the reports coming out of the Institute for the Study of War and the Critical Threats Project. We have to frame this discussion in the context of what is happening right now, today, on March 22nd, 2026. We are no longer talking about these bases as a theoretical deterrent or a subject for OSINT hobbyists to map out in their spare time. With Operation Epic Fury and Operation Roaring Lion in full swing, these missile cities have become active combat theaters. The combined United States and Israeli air campaign is actively trying to neutralize them as we speak.
It is a massive shift in the global security landscape. We have moved from years of posturing and gray zone conflict to a hot war where the geography of these sites is the primary factor. But let's go back to Daniel's core question, because it gets to the heart of how modern warfare is perceived versus how it is actually conducted. If I can see the Haji Abad or Korgo complexes from space, why didn't the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, do a better job of hiding them? Is it just a failure of tradecraft, or is there something more structural at play?
To understand this, we have to define what a missile city actually is. These aren't just bunkers, they are subterranean labyrinths operated by the IRGC Aerospace Force. We are talking about facilities that span approximately 5 miles in length, buried up to 500 meters, or over 1,600 feet below solid mountain rock. The scale is staggering. Estimates suggest Iran has between 2,500 and 3,000 long-range ballistic missiles, including the Shahab-3, which has a range of over 1,200 miles, and the solid-fuel Sejil. To house an arsenal that size, you can't just dig a small hole, you are building a city. And that leads to the answer to Daniel's question: the visibility is almost entirely structural. When you decide to build a facility 500 meters deep, you are making a fundamental choice. You are choosing passive defense over stealth.
Passive defense. We've mentioned that on the show before, but let's break it down for the listeners. How does that differ from traditional camouflage or stealth?
Passive defense is a specific military doctrine that Iran leaned into heavily after the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s. During that conflict, they saw how vulnerable their surface assets were to airstrikes. The takeaway was that you don't care if the enemy knows where you are because you are buried under so much granite and limestone that they can't actually hurt the core assets. Stealth is about not being seen. Passive defense is about being too tough to break. In the eyes of the IRGC, the mountain is the ultimate armor. They accepted that the entrance would be found because they believed the 500 meters of rock above the missiles was an insurmountable barrier.
Right, but there is a difference between being hard to hit and being easy to find. You would think they would at least try to mask the construction process. Even if the final product is a mountain, the process of making it into a base must leave a trail.
And that is where the physics of large-scale engineering becomes the enemy of secrecy. This is what OSINT analysts look for. Think about the sheer volume of material you have to move to create a tunnel system 5 miles long and wide enough for massive trucks. When you excavate tunnels of that scale, you produce hundreds of thousands of tons of rock and debris, which we call tailings. You can't just put that in a dumpster or hide it under a tarp. It creates massive, distinct geological signatures around the site. Even if you try to spread it out, the change in the local landscape, the way the light reflects off freshly broken rock versus weathered mountain slopes, is a neon sign for multispectral satellite imagery. Analysts can look at a mountain and see exactly where the new dirt is, which tells them exactly where the digging is happening.
And it is not just the dirt you take out, it is the infrastructure you have to bring in. I was looking at the road requirements for these sites on some of the analyst threads. These aren't just dirt tracks or mountain trails.
Not at all. These facilities house transporter erector launchers, or TELs. These are massive, multi-axle trucks designed to carry missiles like the Sigil or the Shahab 3. To move a TEL into a mountain, you need specific road widths and, more importantly, huge turning circles. You cannot take a sharp 90-degree turn into a tunnel with a 60-foot missile on the back of a truck. So, analysts look for these wide radius paved roads that lead directly into a mountain face. Once you see that specific geometry, the wide sweep turns, and the reinforced asphalt, you know you aren't looking at a civilian mine or a standard warehouse. The logistics of the weapon system dictate the visibility of the base.
So the visibility is a byproduct of the logistical necessity. They need the heavy infrastructure to move the hardware, and that infrastructure is inherently visible to a satellite. It makes me wonder about the decoy theory Daniel mentioned. If these sites are so obvious, could they just be empty tunnels designed to soak up expensive munitions while the real missiles are hidden elsewhere?
There is almost certainly some level of deception involved. In episode 993, The Orbital Shell Game, we talked about how nations hide infrastructure, and the consensus then was that while you might build a few fake entrances or dummy portals, you don't build 5 miles of reinforced, ventilated, and electrified tunneling just as a prank. The cost-benefit analysis doesn't work. The IRGC has spent billions on these sites. The more likely scenario is that they knew we would find them, and they bet on the mountains being stronger than any bomb the US or Israel could drop.
That bet is being tested right now. The reports from March 20th mention the use of the GBU-72. For those who don't follow munition specs, that is a 5,000-pound advanced bunker buster. If the missiles are 500 meters deep, can even a 5,000-pound bomb reach them?
Probably not the missiles themselves. If you are 500 meters under solid rock, you are safe from a direct kinetic impact. But this is where the coalition strategy in Operation Epic Fury has gotten really clever. Instead of trying to collapse the entire mountain, which is a fool's errand, they are practicing what is called entrance denial. They are using those GBU-72 munitions to crater the tunnel mouths and destroy the TELs as they attempt to emerge. You don't have to destroy the missile if you can destroy the door. If you can't get the missile out of the mountain, it doesn't matter how safe it is inside. The mountain becomes a tomb for the arsenal.
That explains the numbers coming out of CENTCOM. They reported an 86% drop in Iranian missile launch rates within the first 4 days of the conflict. That is a staggering reduction if you consider they have thousands of missiles ready to go.
It shows that the bottleneck isn't the number of missiles, it is the number of exit points. If you have 50 missiles in a tunnel but only 2 exits, and both exits are cratered or under constant surveillance by drones, your launch rate drops to 0. This leads to the debate that analysts like Sam Lair from the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies are having right now. Have these fixed facilities become strategic liabilities? In the 1990s, a mountain was a fortress. In 2026, with persistent overhead custody, a mountain is a trap.
I want to talk about that persistent overhead custody. It is a term that keeps popping up in the ISW reports. It is not just satellites passing over once a day anymore, right?
We're talking about high-altitude, long-endurance drones and constellations of small satellites that just sit over these coordinates 24/7. The moment a blast door opens or a TEL starts to roll out, the sensors pick up the thermal signature or the movement, and a strike can be authorized within seconds. It makes the whole concept of a missile city feel a bit dated. It is like a castle in the age of gunpowder. The walls are thick, but the enemy knows exactly where the gate is, and they are just waiting for you to open it.
That brings us to an interesting point about how OSINT is being weaponized, or in some cases, faked. There was that viral video on March 2nd that supposedly showed the inside of a new missile city. It looked incredibly high-tech, like a villain's lair from a movie, but then the OSINT community debunked it as an AI generation.
That was a wild moment for the community. It turned out the video was created using Google's VO tool. It is a testament to how good generative video has become in early 2026. The creators used prompts to simulate the lighting, the damp textures of an underground bunker, and the rows of missiles. For about 48 hours, people were panicking about a massive new Iranian capability that seemed to bypass all known constraints. It highlights why we need to be skeptical of leaked footage during a conflict. If it looks too perfect, or if the geometry of the tunnels doesn't match the geological realities we see on satellite, it is probably a fake.
It is a double-edged sword for OSINT. On one hand, you have these incredible tools to find real bases on Google Maps, but on the other, you have AI tools that can flood the zone with realistic misinformation. How did the pros tell the difference?
You have to verify the satellite data against the ground level leaks and look for those AI markers. Things like inconsistent shadows, textures that don't quite hold up under scrutiny, or impossible physics. We actually touched on this in episode 567 when we discussed AI and satellite deception. The technology has just accelerated so much since then. The key takeaway for anyone following this on X or Telegram is to look for the physical constraints. I can dream up a tunnel that goes on forever, but it often misses the logistical details like the turning circles for the trucks or the ventilation shafts that are required for solid fuel storage.
Let's talk about that solid fuel aspect. The schedule uses solid fuel, which is much easier to store and launch quickly than liquid fuel. Does that change the math for these underground cities?
It makes them more viable in some ways, but more dangerous in others. Solid fuel missiles don't need the lengthy, visible fueling process that liquid fuel missiles like the Shahab 3 require. You can basically just drive them to the portal and fire. However, solid fuel is essentially a massive block of high-energy chemical propellant. If a bunker buster hits the entrance and causes a secondary explosion or a cave-in near the storage area, the entire facility can become a pressure cooker. The ventilation requirements for storing those chemicals safely are immense. Those ventilation grates are another huge signature on the surface that analysts use to map the internal layout of the base. Even the air they breathe gives them away.
It really does seem like the era of the secret. Underground base is over, at least for anything this large. If you are moving thousands of tons of rock and needing massive amounts of airflow and wide roads, you are going to be found. So, what is the alternative? Does Iran move toward more mobile, dispersed platforms?
That seems to be the direction the doctrine is being forced to go. We are seeing more emphasis on the FATH 450, which is a smaller, more tactical missile that can be launched from standard-looking commercial trucks. The goal there is to blend into civilian traffic. It is the opposite of the missile city. Instead of a massive hardened fortress, you have thousands of tiny, soft targets that are impossible to track individually. It is the move from the castle model to the insurgency model of missile warfare.
It is a grim evolution. It moves the target from a remote mountain to potentially a crowded highway or a warehouse in a city. But from a purely strategic standpoint, it solves the entrance denial problem. You can't crater every road in the country.
You can't, but you can maintain persistent surveillance over the manufacturing hubs. This is where the OSINT work becomes even more critical. Analysts aren't just looking at the launch sites anymore, they are looking at the supply chain. They are tracking the specialized components, the chemical precursors for the fuel, and the heavy transport trailers from the moment they leave the factory. The battlefield has expanded from the 5-mile tunnel to the entire national infrastructure.
It feels like we are witnessing the obsolescence of a specific type of 20th century military thinking. The idea that you can build a physical barrier that an advanced adversary can't overcome is failing. Whether it is a wall or mountain, technology eventually finds a way to bypass it or turn it into a cage.
I agree. The shift we are seeing in March 2026 is the realization that visibility is now a permanent condition of modern warfare. If you are a nation state, you cannot hide large-scale operations. Your only options are to make those operations so mobile they are hard to hit, or so redundant they are hard to kill. The missile cities were a bet on redundancy and hardening, but the precision and persistence of modern air power have turned that hardening into a liability. Brigadier General Majid Malsavi, the IRGC Aerospace Force commander, claimed the first wartime launch of a Segiel on March 15th, but since then the success rate has plummeted because the exit points are simply too predictable.
So, to answer Daniel's question directly, they are conspicuous because they have to be. The physics of their construction and the logistics of their operation leave a footprint that is too large for the modern world to ignore. They aren't necessarily decoys, though they might contain some, but they are increasingly becoming strategic anchors that are dragging down the very forces they were meant to protect.
That is a perfect summary. The visibility isn't a mistake, it is a cost of doing business in a mountain. And right now, that cost is being collected in the form of GBU-72 strikes at the Hajabad portals. Predictability is the new vulnerability.
It is a sobering look at how quickly the strategic landscape can change. We went from talking about these cities as these mythical, untouchable fortresses to seeing them neutralized in a matter of days. It makes you wonder what the next untouchable asset will be, and how long it will take for technology to catch up to that one too.
Probably not long. The cycle of measure and countermeasure is shorter than it has ever been. We are seeing things play out in weeks that used to take decades.
Well, I think we have thoroughly explored the depths of this one. Let's look at some practical takeaways for the people following this at home. First, if you see a viral video of a military base that looks like it is from a movie, check the source and look for AI artifacts. The tech is good, but it is not perfect yet. Second, remember that in modern warfare, being hidden is often less important than being mobile. A mountain is easy to find, a moving truck is not. And finally, keep an eye on the OSINT community. They are often ahead of the official reports when it comes to identifying strike patterns and structural damage.
Those are great points. I would also add that we should look for the second-order effects of this campaign. If the missile cities are failing, look for where that hardware is being moved. The shift to mobile launchers will have huge implications for civilian safety and regional stability in the coming months.
Definitely something to watch. This has been a deep dive into a topic that is literally unfolding as we speak. I am sure we will be coming back to this as more data from Operation Epic Fury becomes available.
I am looking forward to it. There is always more to uncover when you start looking at the intersection of geography and high-tech warfare.
Thanks as always to our producer, Hilbert Flumingtop, for keeping the gears turning behind the scenes. And a big thanks to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power this show and allow us to process all this data.
This has been My Weird Prompts. If you are enjoying the show, we would love it if you could leave us a quick review on your podcast app. It really helps other curious minds find us.
You can find all our past episodes and ways to subscribe at myweirdprompts.com. We will be back soon with another prompt from Daniel.
See you then.
Take care.
This episode was generated using Gemini Flash 3. Text-to-speech engine was Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change and follow through. My Weird Prompts, that's the close from sloth.